wanted to share some remarks about Atlanta and about Fred Langrock today for our program. Before I do that, there were some people that I wanted to thank for helping make this, this exhibit possible. John Sparrow and Nick Sparrow have done a lot of work in preparation. Denny Johnson, of course, Eloise Cooper, Starla Castman, Leon Dunkelberg, Donna Bremer have all helped set up. And transforming this space from one exhibit to the next is never an easy task. But these people have stepped up to it in glorious fashion, and we are indebted to them for recreating this space into the exhibit that we're calling Rediscovering Atlanta. The title, Rediscovering Atlanta, the word rediscovering can be both a verb as well as an adjective. A verb as in we, members of the community, are rediscovering this remarkable woman. And it's also an adjective as in this woman was adventuresome, at the frontier of her field, the always exploring and rediscovering Atlanta Sampson. Oh, the inescapable circumstances that Atlanta found herself in, as we all do. As we embark on new adventures, we may try to shed the old ones. We may try to leave our former selves at the threshold like a pair of Richard's overshoes. And yes, there are times when we can transcend or float over our own history as though it were irrelevant or of minor consequence. As one who appreciates history, I think it wiser to embrace one's circumstances, our own personal story, the episodes, the situations, the life chapters that collectively make us unique and distinctive individuals. We will never know, for example, might Atlanta's art have been different if she had significant financial resources behind her? We'll never know what larger canvases might have resulted if the elevator to her rather modest apartment could fit something larger than 50 inches by 50 inches. We'll never know how her art would have emerged if she had married or had children, or both. What we know is this: art was Atlanta's life, and Atlanta's life story is captured and made available to us today in her art as autobiographical as Hamlin Garland's stories. It's her diary, her photo album, her logbook. Look at these paintings today, and you will see who she is and where she is, the life and times of Atlanta Sampson. Atlanta's life story is remarkably compelling. As true of many of us here today, she was born into a farm family, in her case, east of Lisle, north of Torterville, very near 6 Mile Grove Lutheran Church, which she attended, where her relatives still attend, where some of us here today worship this very morning, myself included. As is true of many of us, at an early age, Atlanta developed an abiding interest. For some of us, it's farming, or baseball, or horses, or fishing. For Atlanta, it was painting, and it became art. But for Atlanta, art was more than a mere interest. It was a lifelong passion, her dream, her pursuit. It became who she was, Atlanta Sampson, artist. 2 points I want to make about Atlanta. First, she was indeed an artist, and I cite as evidence my second point. She was a oneer. That's a term her sister-in-law used to describe her, and by that she meant one of a kind. For a true artist is not particularly interested in moving with the crowd or in seeing the world from the same angle as others. True artists, like true explorers or true scientists, are either best, first, or most. That, or they're merely a crew member, a lab technician, or dabbling in weekend watercolor. As in Oliver Wendell Holmes's The Chambered Nautilus, this rediscovering woman was forever outgrowing the old and spiraling into the amorphous next, in many cases reaching into the unknown. Build thee more stately mansions, O my soul. Atlanta Sampson was an artist, so by my definition, perhaps mine only, she was one of a kind. Atlanta did not live in Mitchell County until late in life. Still, there are some Atlanta stories circulating in the Midwest. One of my favorites comes from the New York Times article, and let's face it, not many locals are profiled in the New York Times. In the paper's story about the initial discovery of Atlanta, and I quote, "She never married, though there once was a boy back in Iowa who told her, 'You know, you're not the settling down type.' He would have married me," Atlanta said, "but you know a divorce would have broken my heart. But on second thought," she said, with just the right measure of sauciness in her tongue, "I have my art, and men want women to fix hamburgers and things." My other Atlanta story has to do with her final years at the Good Samaritan home in St. Ansgar. Now, let's face it, Atlanta was not your typical home resident. While she wasn't exactly antisocial, she'd spent a good part of her life as a struggling artist in New York City, most certainly the only Good Sam resident at the time who could make that claim. As a result, Atlanta spent long hours in her room alone, while staff members generally encouraged social interaction and engagement in group activities. Staff member to Atlanta: "Why don't you come out into the lobby and watch television with the other residents? Lawrence Welk will be on in a few minutes." Atlanta: "No, I'll stay here. He's dead, you know." Well, yes and no. For as long as there is cable television, Lawrence Welk, a Midwesterner of similar vintage, is alive and well. And as long as Sampson canvases are displayed, Atlanta too is with us, both her art as well as her undefeated spirit. Now let me say a few words about my friend Fred Langrock, for whom this exhibit is a memorial. Fred, as you know, was Atlanta's nephew, her sister Martella's son. I'm going to tell you about the Sampson family. There was Adela, Martella, Belina, Atlanta, and Oscar, the Sampson Five. I knew them all except Adela. As important as being a nephew, Fred was Atlanta's soulmate of sorts. Why? Because Fred also was a one of a kind. Think about it. Opening an art gallery to sell abstract expressionist paintings and prints in downtown Toberville, Iowa. This is not what a banker would call a strong business proposition. Yet, Fred made it work somehow, at least after a fashion. You see, Fred's gift was music, not business, and his other abundant gift was kind-heartedness, which, even given his many musical abilities, may have been the greater of the two. Thoughtful, talented, gentle Fred. Several years ago, a men's quartet that I sing with did a benefit concert in support of a church-sponsored mission trip to Mexico. Fred attended and was most gracious in his praise for our earnest but rather homemade efforts. Afterwards, over coffee in the church parlors, I sat with Fred and explained to him that this was actually the second time that we had done this, that our first such attempt had been 5 years previous. He looked at me thoughtfully and said, "You know, you might not want to wait another 5 years." We didn't. But by the time we performed again, last year, this very month, Fred was already gone. My last interaction with Fred came in the fall of 2011, when the Historical Preservation Commission was conducting a driving inspection tour of sites with potential historic significance in Mitchell County. Although Fred is not a commission member, he was interested and he wanted to join in. Of course, he also wanted to ensure that we understood the historic significance of his beloved Toterville. Fred was my car mate for the day. Ever engaging, knowledgeable, interested, a terrific conversationalist. And of course, several hours in the car together gave us a chance to get caught up. He told me that he was pondering doing something to the old Toterville grocery store, run for many years by Fred and Marge Borgeman, may they rest in peace, which almost abuts the Unionhurst Gallery in Toterville. But by the time we stopped in Toterville, he had turned somewhat wistful, perhaps just being realistic. "I don't suppose it will ever happen," he said. There are just so many ideas, so many things I'd like to do, but they all take time and they all take money. Little did I know, on that very day, Fred's time was measured in weeks. A one-woman show in New York, an art gallery in Toterville, an aunt and a nephew, two classic wonders. What are we to make of it all? Some 30 years ago, I became acquainted with an O'Shaughnessy poem entitled Ode, which was written in 1874. I did bring a few extra copies if you're interested, and it will also be posted on our website. It's really a wonderful poem. Although the poem is often reduced to its rather famous lines, first two lines, it has 9 verses. You'll be pleased to know I'm not going to read them all. It is as if O'Shaughnessy was writing about Fred, the music maker, and Atlanta, the dreamer of dreams. From Ode. We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams, wandering by lone sea breakers and sitting by desolate streams. World losers and world forsakers, on whom the pale moon gleams, yet we are the movers and shakers of the world forever, it seems. With wonderful deathless ditties, we build up the world's great cities, and out of a fabulous story we fashion an empire's glory. One man with a dream at pleasure shall go forth and conquer a crown, and 3 with a new song's measure can trample a kingdom down. A breath of our inspiration is the life of each generation, a wondrous thing of our dreaming, unearthly, impossible seeming. The soldier, the king, and the peasant are working together in one, till our dreams shall become their present, and their work in the world be done. But we, with our dreaming and singing, ceaseless and sorrowless we, the glory about us clinging of the glorious futures we see, our souls with high music ringing. O men, it must ever be that we dwell in our dreaming and singing, a little apart from ye. Great hail, we cry to the comers from the dazzling unknown shore. Bring us hither your sun and your summers, and renew our world as of yore. You shall teach us your song's new numbers, and things that we dreamed not before, yea, in spite of a dreamer who slumbers, and a singer who sings no more. We are the we are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams, yet we are the movers and shakers of the world forever, it seems. My friends, the real movers and shakers in the world, those who renew us when we grow weary, are the music makers and the dreamers of dreams. We all know them. The list includes, but does not stop with Atlanta and Fred. It's only appropriate for me to say that this very building, this wonderful, now indispensable facility, began with a dream. What we have here today is a tribute to unheralded visionaries, unnamed, so we can all be included, all who dreamed and imagined and envisioned great things for our community. Thank God for the dreamers, for on their shoulders we advance as a society. If I may be so bold today to conclude with a suggestion, as we seek to leave this world a better place, let's do what we can to lift up our dreamers and music makers. Let's do what we can to accept them and assure them, to support and sustain them, to encourage and embrace them, to invite and include them, to hold and to help them, to challenge and cheer them. Let's vow to engage and promote and nurture and defend and foster and affirm and, yes, even love them to the best of our absolute ability. And some of the dreamers and musicians that I know are not all that lovable. Thank you for being here today. You are brave souls to have come, or foolish souls, dreamers perhaps. Thank you for helping us all rediscover Atlanta. And thank you all for your steadfast support of the Mitchell County Historical Society.